All right, well, welcome to class, everyone. Happy Friday. Today's session, and this is lesson 4. This is section 4 in Tuku, so we're halfway there. Only 4 more to go after today. So this is all about social media and communication. And I'm going to say it's maybe a little bit more about communication in the sense of how you communicate your message to your potential audience, whether that is an employer or a graduate school or a professional school or a professor that you want to work with. So I know probably most of you will smile when you think about me giving a talk on social media, because I know you know more about social media than I will ever hope to know, and that's okay. So you've grown up with this. This is it's an integral part of your life for connecting and staying connected with people, and yet it can also be a really helpful instrument for you in your professional directions as well. Social media can come in really handy. And that's what we're going to talk about a bit more today. How do you utilize social media strategically so that it's in your best interest and that you get to show what you want to out there to your potential audiences? So, social media in my career, what is the big deal exactly? So in a very short period of time, it's become integral to job searching, in fact. It's an opportunity for you to network with companies, with people, with alumni. It's a chance for you to share information. So if you're really good at something and you want to share your expertise and skills out there, why not? That can become part of your brand. This is what I expect when I see a post from you. It's certainly a way to stay connected, absolutely. And it's about establishing and presenting an online reputation or a brand, if you will, right? So, and I'm going to get you thinking about this now, because I'm going to ask you later. When you think about yourself, can you think of yourself as a brand? What is a word that people use to describe you or describe the posts that you put up regularly? Because people do have brands, I noticed. I have all kinds of family and friends on in social media, and some of them I get really excited when I see them posting, because I know it's something that really intrigues me, and it's always really well written and very clear and relevant to my work. And then there's others that it's like, yeah, I'm not interested in puppies. I mean, some days I am interested in puppies, but just not today. Anyway, you get what I mean. The people have a presence that they establish, and people come to know you by your online presence. And it's up to you to create what that presence is and what it means to you from a professional standpoint. So not only can you optimize your social media output to connect and enhance your career preparation, but it's also a way for other people to get some intel on you and whether they want to include you in their work. So it's certainly a way to assess character, and always keep in mind that that's a bit of an abstract term, and character for some people can mean different things. So think about the character that you are portraying on your social media. What is it saying to people? So confidentiality, finding out if you're leaking company information. So, I mean, this may sound silly and very James Bond-like, but on the other hand, I see our co-op students in roles all the time where they're working on proprietary information, and they when they send their work term reports into us, they actually have to redact it because they're not even allowed to tell us about this. So also attitudes, and I think this one is probably the strongest one for me. So you can tell a lot about people's attitudes by maybe the way they handle customers or clients, maybe the way they work with their coworkers, or how they feel about management or their company in general. right? So there are there's a lot of information that can be gained about attitude. Work ethic, of course. Are you posting while you're supposed to be working? And one example that I have of this, one summer when I was at the College of Family Physicians of Canada, we had a number of sort of new graduates slash students come in to work with us in a number of capacities. And I would have to walk by their cubicles on the way to my boss's office. And every time I walked by, I would see them shopping online for shoes. They'd be looking at trips. And it wasn't even so much as that, because all of us check out our social media once in a while in our workday. That's okay. But they gave no indication that they were even bothered by somebody actually seeing them. I would have at least made an attempt to black my screen or quickly shift over. Anyway, they weren't people who worked with me, and so it really wasn't my concern. And yet it was someone's concern, and it was noticed. And these people were escorted unceremoniously out of the building early one summer morning. So that was the end of that. So you really do have to be careful about who's watching you. There are sophisticated systems of monitoring, so you need to be careful about what you're doing during the day. And also, social media can tell us a lot about your personality. What can I tell about you? Do you seem like the sort of person that I'd like to bring onto our team and I'd like to bring into my office? Because that's really important. Team dynamics, human dynamics are very, very important. And I would say that when you're being selected for whatever role it is, personality fit is something that's really key, because one person on a team can have a huge impact on how that team functions. And I've seen it over many times over the course of my career. Good impacts, bad impacts. So that's why hiring managers are typically very careful to select the people that they think will integrate smoothly into their team. All right, so let's look at social media recruitment. Hiring managers, apparently, it's my data show from JobVite show that 4% of managers don't use social media during the recruiting processes. And in fact, 4% say they're not sure if they use social media, which I have no idea what that means. But anyway, at the end of the day, 92% of hiring managers are using social media to gather intel on their candidates. What can I tell about you before you walk in the door for that interview? Will I offer you an interview based on what I find on social media? And you can see overwhelmingly on this chart that 87% of hiring managers are looking at LinkedIn profiles. And this may not be a strong drive or interest for you to create this. And that's why we make this an assignment for this. We want to help you with it. And this is, LinkedIn is really the one place where professionals go to gather and connect, and it's kept that way. It's kept pretty pristine. I don't see people, having, putting out opinions and, those kinds of things there. It's really about sharing and sharing your professional presence and, and connecting as well. Okay, so what are they looking for? Mutual connections is a very important thing. So if I see someone that that I know, I might ask them about you. Oh, what do you think about that person? Do you think they'd be a good fit? Because that firsthand data is very, very important intel. It's very important. If I know someone that I trust and they tell me about you, that's an important thing. So the wider your network, probably the better it works for you. So another thing that they might be looking for is written or design work. And if you're the sort of person who has multiple interests, maybe some creative outlets, maybe you're a creative writer, maybe you're somebody who makes jewelry or other kinds of artistic endeavors. One student I know is an animator. Your resume and your cover letter are static documents. Yes, they are going to describe you as best you can. And yet they don't allow me to know very much about you beyond what's on that paper. Social media can help you with that. This is a place where you can disclose and share those sides of yourself, because you never know where hidden in a job is the kind of task or role that maybe it's not on the job description, but maybe that kind of skill might come in very handy. So why not put it out there for the world to see? And of course, recruiters are also looking at your background, your work, your volunteer experience, all of those sorts of things. So let's look at some social media red flags. So pretend I'm a hiring manager and you are going to be applying for a position with me. What do you think are going to be some red flags for me? So you put up your hand, use the chat. Any way that works for you is just fine. So tell me, for you, what are you thinking a red flag might be? Thoughts, ideas. What am I going to find on a social media page that might make me say, no, thank you? Yeah, Mackenzie.
I guess if you have any posts about you like bullying someone or bullying a group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of hatred is just, it's not a good thing. And, I would like to think that none of us none of us have those sorts of feelings, but sometimes I'm naive when it comes to those sorts of things. Thanks, Mackenzie. Other ideas. I'm sure you have lots. Tell me about those ideas. What are some red flags that you might be showing on your social media? So Jacob, yeah, party photos potentially, although, I mean, we all like a good party, right? I guess it just depends on what you're showing at the party. Tithia is saying disrespecting one's employer. Absolutely, that shows your attitude right there. Rebecca, posting about personal controversial opinions. Absolutely. Anything that's polarizing, you just don't know what other people think, and why go down that rabbit hole. That's what I'm thinking. Sophia, of course, doing anything legal like vandalizing. Amish is saying drug use. Yeah. Chrissy, any posts that go against a company's diversity inclusion policy. Yeah, that would be an important one as well. Isha, constantly switching jobs like every few months, it might be a red flag to the candidate's commitment or why they had to switch so many times. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you see a new job, oh, I have a new job. Oh, wait a minute, I have a new job again. That could certainly be a red flag. And that's one that's easy to assess from something like LinkedIn, right? Yeah, so those are all spot on. And so I'm just going to show you some statistics that I have on red flags here. And this also comes from JobBite. Now, I think these are 2016 statistics, so they may be a little dated, but we should really find some new ones. Because the first one is marijuana use. And I'm going to say that I'm going to guess that is not as high now because, well, marijuana is legal in Canada, right? So there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, the thing is, if in every post that you make is something about weed or your use or that lifestyle, that might be a red flag. But if it's, an occasional party, as Jacob said, party photos, I mean, it's the quantity, let's put it that way. Political rants. I think most of you have, captured that. Anything that's polarizing is probably not a good thing. Spelling or grammar errors. And here's where I'm feeling really sheepish because my poll had a spelling mistake in it this morning. I'm really sorry about that because this is one that's really important for me. And I know that, in the texting world, there's a lot, tends to be a lot of spelling or grammar errors, but try to reduce those as much as possible. Alcohol consumption. Again, not a red flag in and of itself, but if it's every photo you've got your beer keg in your hand, that could be a red flag. Showing off big wealth, showing too much skin, having a limited social presence. Now, I'm going to say that if you couldn't find me on social media, I'm pretty sure that none of you would be worried about that. But if I can't find you on social media, that might just make me pause and say, And now I totally get, we had a student in our last class who said that, they don't have that presence. And my own daughter does not, who's not that much older than you, has no presence. That's a personal choice. It just, it's, you utilize the connections in the way that you need to. But someone might think about this. If they couldn't find you at all, then what might they think about that? And the last social media red flag is around posting selfies. And I know this sounds like a kind of a silly one, but I mean, I grew up in a religious household where vanity is a sin. And I know that sounds funny and old fashioned, but I get really uncomfortable with when I try to take a selfie. I feel very self-conscious and awkward and embarrassed. But that's just me, right? So I know that's just normal stuff for you. So I'm going to say maybe because this is on this list, keep them to a minimum, but it's all, as I said, in the quantity. And then I couldn't resist. But first, before we go on, let me just take a selfie. So, in fact, there are a number of cases where people have, in fact, lost their jobs because of what they were putting there out there on social media. One of the best known cases was an NBA fan who, on the way home from a game, tweeted inappropriate comments about one of the players and their family. And the thing is, it's not that the person was connected to their boss or their work environment on Twitter, but someone else was. And that someone else who was connected with that someone who was putting out this negativity, they contacted the person's employer and the person lost their job, and rightly so. Some other examples were our 2 Toronto firefighters lost their jobs after posting misogynistic and offensive tweets. An on-air Sportsnet host lost his job after he tweeted his support for a hockey agent's anti-gay marriage stance. And a Mr. Lube employee lost his job in 2013 when he tried to use Twitter to source some pot. Anyway, I'm going to say that might not be as strong an influence as it is now because pot is legal in Canada. But again, you have to think about what your audience is. What are the people, the employers, the hiring managers, what are they going to think about the persona that you're portraying on social media? So there are, seemingly endless ways to express yourself in the online world. And how you do that is really up to you. You have to decide what is in your best interests. What is in your best interest? How do you want to portray yourself professionally on social media? And part of your reflection this week is to assess what you do on social media and how do you think you're going to utilize these tools in order to effectively showcase you as a professional person. It's entirely up to you. So Facebook, we're just going to go through these quickly. I mean, potentially there's a huge audience here. There's so many people out there who are connected to Facebook. I'd encourage you to use your real name if you're going to use it. Think about your privacy settings, and this goes for any of social media. You have to decide what your privacy settings are on these channels. I don't know enough about these things to know how accurate and how effective these privacy settings are. So just be careful about that. As with any social media, you can like companies, you can interact, you can join groups, you can even potentially let your connections know you're searching. And sort of the other side of the world equivalent of Facebook is WeChat. And I have a WeChat account because I taught English online for many years. And that was the only way I could connect with my employers in Asia. So I'm sure a lot of you here are WeChat people. Twitter, right. So Twitter is an interesting one for me. I've never really gotten it. I don't really like sound bites. I love words. I love language. And it just seems to sum up things in such a way that it really doesn't have much meaning for me. But if you're going to use it, I mean, maybe it is meaningful for you. If you're going to use it, be a thought leader, think about what you're posting out there. Again, have it line with your brand. One example of this, I'm sure you will be amused to know that when I worked for the Institute for Healthcare Communication, I was actually their social media person. And I used Twitter because I felt like we were a dinosaur if we didn't. But I was always putting stuff out there. What are we doing now? What courses are we running? What do you get from these things? If I see literature or interesting reading in the areas of healthcare communication, I'd put it out there. But what I wasn't doing was I wasn't actually looking at Twitter because I really didn't care what anybody else was posting, and I didn't have time to look. So it always left me with the feeling like, is this really working? Because shouldn't this be an interactive and connected process? Anyway, that's my experience with Twitter. But if you have ways that you think you can use this in a way that works for you professionally or personally, of course, go to it. Of course, there's Instagram. There's all kinds of interesting things that you can do on Instagram to fortify your image and your brand. Use hashtags, geotags, all of that. YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Snapchat, the list goes on and on and on. Anyway, this is up to you. What tools here are going to serve you best in your professional, in your personal world, of course, but in your professional world especially, because that's what we're focusing on here. So really thinking about you. What is your brand? What does someone say about you when you're not in the room, right? So brand is about trust, being consistent in what you say and how you say it. It's kind of like your promise. I always promise that I'm going to tell you things or share things or disclose information that is on certain topics or in certain areas because that is my passion. That is part of my brand. Okay, and people come to know you for that and they count on it, right? So it's about being authentic. It's about being personal if you can. And I'm going to ask you to think about your brand as we look at this just brief video on branding. So let me go to my next slide. And prior to starting this brief video, I'm going to tell you that embedded herein is your quiz answer for the week. So if you want to go to Avenue now and get ready, this is where you're going to find your quiz answer. Whoops, except that I need to play it first.
What is a brand? A brand is the difference between a pair of running shoes and a pair of Nikes. A brand is what people feel about you, your product, the service you provide, or your organization. It's part rational, but mostly emotional. People will forgive a strong brand if it makes a mistake. Remember New Coke? Likewise, people won't forgive a weak brand if it makes a mistake. Remember Gateway Computers? We thought so. So, what is the secret of a strong brand? The answer is surprisingly simple. Focus. I'll say it again. Focus. Great brands stand for something. Not a lot of things. One thing. For decades, Swedish car maker VOLVO defined their brand with a single word. Safety. Well, it seemed to work for them. Sometimes you have to think beyond the category to know what you stand for. Harley-Davidson makes motorcycles. Want to guess what they stand for? Freedom. Not a more powerful engine, not a more reliable bike or a smoother ride. Freedom. Brands are experiential. Take Starbucks. They differentiate themselves in many ways and offer a consistent brand experience in every Starbucks you visit. They even have their own language. Starbucks has created a unique community of coffee lovers that speak Starbucksese and are true brand ambassadors. It doesn't get any better than that. Starbucks had realized they weren't in the business of serving coffee. They were in the business of serving people.
Okay, so in case you missed that, Starbucks is the answer to your quiz this week. So tell me, focus your brand. What would you think? I mean, this may be a hard question for many of you, but if you could think of one word that you think is your brand, how do people see you? How do they describe you? Or another way to think about it is like, what is one of your strengths? Anything come to mind for people? Sometimes it's good to ask other people what they think, because sometimes we're surprised by how someone else views us or what they think our approach is. Anyone have some branding ideas for themselves? It's okay if you don't. I just thought I'd put that out there, because that's the sort of thing that really think about. Think about who you are. What is your authentic brand? What do people associate directly with you when they check out their social media posts? Okay, so again, the industry characteristics and your accomplishments, skills, and personality. This is where your brand can help you create the facets of this puzzle piece in order to fit in with what the industry is looking for. So creating a personal brand. So it really is looking at you, your unique skills and strengths, and there's many ways that you can figure those things out. Asking friends or family, assessments. You did the 16 personalities thing. Share your expertise, okay? And then you're going to create an emotional bond with that messaging, because even in that video, it said it's partly rational, but it's partly emotional. I mean, I'm sure you've heard conversations between Starbucks versus Timmy's lovers, right? I've seen people almost come to blows over their coffee affinities, right? So, but it's all about clear, consistent messaging and building relationships. With whom do you want to build relationships, right? If your brand is in the context of your interests, you will attract connections who share your brand, who share your interests. And that's how you're going to build a strong, effective professional network. Okay, so LinkedIn. It is really the only social media platform that is strictly for professional purposes. So that's why we ask you to create your profile here. And as we said before, 87% of recruiters are looking for your LinkedIn profile. Okay, it can give you a lot of really handy data as well, LinkedIn. What are the recruiters looking for? They're looking for your job tenure. Of course, they're looking for your experiences. They're looking for mutual connections. And you can really get connected. It's really easy to connect with people on LinkedIn, even with the free version of it. You can message somebody. So if you went to a conference or a meeting and you connected with somebody, it's easy to say hello. Oh, hey, I really liked your point about this, in this conference or this meeting. And then you can connect your connections to the connections. So it's all in, an interconnected web of professional capacities, and it can really help you. You can do research. So these particular charts look at McMaster alumni. So these are the sorts of things you can do through LinkedIn. McMaster alumni, where do they live? Where do they work? What do they do? Why not tap into people whose careers interest you? Doesn't that make sense? There is an emotional bond when you go to that same university. And so an alumni is not going to be surprised that you've reached out to them to ask them, what was your experience in the Global Health Master's program? That sounds really interesting. These are just questions. And when you check in with people from a point of view of curiosity. People like to talk about their work and themselves. So be curious, and you can find out lots of intel this way. You can do company research, you can follow your favorites, you can do expert, you can find out, you can tap into experts. But I really wanted to get to our LinkedIn assignment, and we wanted to discuss this in a little bit of detail. And so it came to last semester when I was working with Laura and Monique. They came up with the idea that we should do profile pictures, and see what people's take is on different profile pictures. And then we're going to look at best practices around that. But I'd like your opinion on these first. And when they came to me with this idea, I thought it was great. And it underpinned the fact that I had just had a weird experience with a profile picture with a new colleague of mine, just brand new colleague in the fall. I had never met this person. The person connected with me on LinkedIn, and I kind of got a weird vibe from the picture. The only word I could think of was dude. I don't know, and then I met with this person, and he was so sweet, so warm, so helpful, so supportive. And I thought, that's not what your picture says at all. And that really made me start thinking about pictures and what pictures we put out there, and what kind of assumptions do people make from them. Okay, so I'm going to enlist your help here. So I'm going to put up a number of potential profile pictures. And they're all lettered. And I'm going to invite you can only ask one of these people to an interview. So on your instincts here, let me just off the bat, just looking at the profile pictures, who are you going to invite to that interview? Lots of different faces here, different looks. Who would you contact first? I mean, not to say that you wouldn't contact multiple people with these profile pictures, but who's just the first person who just stands out to you? Okay, so, wow, you guys are pretty opinionated. Okay, so overwhelmingly 60% of you said A. And then the runner-up was F. And then we had 8% with B and a few with E. Okay, so tell me about it. Tell me about your choices. I'm curious. What was it about these pictures that interested you, intrigued you? What are your thoughts on this? Yes, Mackenzie.
It kind of looks like person A is in like a workplace when the picture's being taken. So I was like, oh, that's kind of professional looking.
Yeah, you're right. So the background could be really important, right? I'm showing my work environment here. Yeah, maybe all my plants in my background aren't that professional. But good point, Mackenzie. Yeah, that's all right. Let's see what other people are saying. So, so Rebecca's saying A had a professional attire and a clear background, also looked friendly. All right. Tiffy says A looks friendly yet sleek and professional. Haral says, looks professional and super friendly. Fizza says A seemed much more professional than most of the others. Sarah picked F because he was smiling and having fun while still looking professional. Let's see. G looked too attached to this cat. Rimsdim says F looked like someone who is friendly, open to new experiences, and professional. And Sophia says, I like the outdoor background in F, and he's smiling. Yeah. Yeah, all good points here. And these are actual profile pictures that we stole from people. Hopefully nobody knows anyone here. So I think you're on the right track here for sure. But think of purpose, right? And I remember last fall when we did this, actually a lot of people, some people chose G because they said, if you were in a creative industry, that's kind of a creative picture, right? I mean, who knows? But let's look at why some of these, at some best practices and why some of these might not have been the best choice. So selecting the best LinkedIn pictures, some do's. So headshot, face should be 60% of the shot. So I think it was B, the dude showing pretty much down to his knees. That might not be the best look. This is the recommendation for a Facebook or a LinkedIn profile picture, mostly face. Look approachable. And when you chose the candidate F there, I mean, I like him. I'd really want to talk to him. He just looked, I mean, yes, he looked professional, but he looked really friendly too. But yet so did A. I mean, and many of them looked approachable. Make sure it's current. Don't be putting your baby pictures out there, right? Choose the right expression. Again, this could be situation specific. The right expression for one situation may not be the right expression. So if you are in a creative industry or profession, it might look very different than someone who's, a science major. I don't know. That's up to you. Wear usual work attire. And that was the point that Mackenzie made, that looks like the person is in their work environment. And yes, I would encourage you to wear the kind of attire that you think is suitable for the work environment that you aspire to be in for your picture. And another recommendation is a straight on photo as opposed to over the shoulder or, other glamour shots. So some basic don'ts. Don't use filters. Don't crop a group picture, all right? So you saw one example of that in our examples. Don't have a distracting background. A few of them had a distracting background here. And don't incorporate hobbies into your pictures. Yeah. And I kind of agree with that, and yet I kind of don't. I think it just depends on what you're doing. And I just want to go back to that slide just for a second there. I mean, look at E. Now, E, I don't necessarily get warm fuzzies looking at E, but it's following all the best practices. And if this person was applying for a bouncer job at a nightclub, I'd say, wow, he looks like he would be really good at that. And just some other points around this. So our person in H looks like it was just a candid shot. She's got her winter coat on. Our C, for instance, looks like a vacation snap. So sunglasses, right? We want to see you for sure. So I think many of these pictures would be absolutely fine. But you need to find out what best suits your needs in this. And Laura and Monique last semester curated a list of some tips around your profile, not just your picture, but around your profile in general. So we are finished our section for today. So I would like to a couple of things I want to do. I want to stop for questions, but I also want to ask you for feedback. So no, I know you always give feedback to a course, about a course and course instructor at the end of the semester, and that's great. And we really appreciate when you do that. The thing is, after a course that I took in the summer on reflective practice and education, I really felt that one thing I took away from that was that I would like to have more feedback along the way. How do I best inform my practices? How do I know what you want? How do I know what you'd like to see? How do I know what you'd like to do more of? What interests you? What doesn't interest you? And so I'm going to ask you to, I'll click this link in a little bit. but this is totally voluntary. This is totally anonymous, and this is very much appreciated. Our office is actually going to be undergoing some changes in the next little bit, and we always are reevaluating Science 2 COO and what we do with it and how we roll it out. So your input around this is could be very, very valuable to us. So let's go. I think I have the link somewhere. I posted it when I first came on. So I'm just going to put it in here now. And if somebody could just check that out to make sure it's accessible to you before we leave, that would be great. Because sometimes I forget to make it open to everybody. Okay, all right, thanks, Laura. Thanks, Tiffy. Very good. Anyway, it won't take you long. It really will not take you long. I cannot tell you how meaningful this is for us to get direct information. And when I think about making changes to how we roll out Tuku, it's very personal to me. And so if I have your data about what you want to see, what you like, what you'd like to change, what you do differently, that's really, really important to us, because then we can go to the Associate Dean Academic and we can say, this is what our students are telling us, because that has power. You have power here. And I want to encourage you to help us make this into, evolve into a program that works for you. Okay, so questions about social media, about your LinkedIn profile, about assignments, about anything. Oh, I know what I also wanted to say. Next Friday, because I had a conversation with a student, I'm not sure if they're in this class or another class early in their week, but I had a conversation yesterday, and the student asked me about interview practice for co-op. And so I thought what I might do next Friday for one of our FAQ Friday topics is I might do just a little session on interviewing best practices. So if that is of interest to you, just keep your eyes. I haven't put it up as an event yet on Oscar Plus, but I do intend to. Also, the co-op group themselves, some of our students who are working with us currently are going to run an info session as well about interviews. And you should be getting some information from that from our co-op team staff. So the more prepared you are when you go into these things, the more confident you'll feel and the better it will go. So any questions, or will I release you to the universe to have a great weekend? Okay, so when one student has a concern for me, could you talk with me about that in person? Just email me and we can talk about that. Ying Chen is saying, how can we take a photo on campus to create a LinkedIn picture? Well, you will be on campus soon, I'm hoping, or unless you're not on campus. Are you not on campus? You don't have to have it on campus for sure. It can be anywhere. You know, I mean, just as long as the background is fairly plain. Oh, you're in Hamilton now. There you go. So other questions, or you got it all sorted out? We can't wait to see your profiles. Yes, and the answer to that question is yes, you may certainly email it to me directly. Yes, absolutely. Thanks for checking on that. Yeah, if the portal is closed for any of your reflections, because they're timed to close at the beginning of class, you may certainly email us for permission to email it, and just email it to us as opposed to uploading it directly to Avenue. All righty. So looks like, okay. Yes, starting next week, we will be in person. I have at least 2 students who do have issues with being in person in the class. I'm not a tech, I'm not a tech anything. Next week I need to get in the classroom. I know there's new technology in Burke Science now that I have not used before. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but my intention now is to either live stream our lecture or to at least record it and post it later. That's my intention. So if if not being able to attend is directly related to any of you, I'm going to do my best to make sure that we can still continue to quote meet, at least online. Okay, other questions about that? I'm so excited to see all of you and to meet all of you. And I think actually next week, one of our social media student might come in and just chit chat with a few of you and maybe get some info for her postings. Okay, good. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I know I'm going to, because I just submitted a big assignment last night and I have no assignments due this weekend, so I'm happy and I'm going to enjoy myself. So see you all next week. Bye.